Hey guys, I don't know about you, but I've been feeling kind of drained lately, so I'm going to do something for this video that usually comes pretty easy to me, which is painting. And after, I'm going to show you how I made this painting light up. All the supplies are going to be listed in the description along with helpful links, so check those out and then go ahead and subscribe while you're down there. I'm using a pencil to sketch this out first. I'm going to try and get a downloadable template for this design up on my blog so that you can print this out, trace it, and make the painting yourself. Link is going to be in the description. You can do this on just about any regular canvas that you'll find at a craft store. It just has to be a framed canvas, none of those panels. We need the depth that the frame creates on the back in order to hold the battery pack. Okay, so the paint I'm using is called Black 2.0 from Culture Hustle, and it absorbs 96% of light, making it some of the blackest paint that you can buy. They do have a Black 3.0 that absorbs up to 99% of light, but it's a little bit more expensive, so I just stuck with 2.0. If you've ever heard of Vanta Black, it's a lot like that, but without all of the exclusive rights drama. Vanta Black used to be used for military purposes, and then some guy named Anish Kapoor bought the exclusive rights to Vanta Black for artistic purposes, meaning that no one else would be allowed to use it, which is kind of rude. So Culture Hustle developed their own Blackest Black paint and sells it to everyone except for that guy. They're also only charging $20 per bottle. It's actually $15.99 on their website right now, and it smells like black cherry. I love it. It's heavenly, and I probably should not be sniffing this much paint right now. So I thought it would be cool to use it here with the lights behind it since it absorbs so much light. It goes on super smooth and it's super opaque in just one coat, but because it's so pigmented, it can stain your skin, so watch out for that. You can also dilute it with water, but that might be the one thing that I don't like about this. When it came into contact with water after drying on the canvas, it bled a little and muddied up some of the colors, but when it bled, it was kind of like particles. You could see particles floating in the water, and then the color just kind of became a little bit more brown. So I'm not sure it was the perfect choice for line art in this case, but I still love this paint and I still give it 5 stars. I've done a painting like this on canvas before using watercolors, but this time the canvas I had was kind of repelling the watercolor paint, making it bead up. I don't know if there was something in the manufacturing process, like a residue that was left over, but watercolor just would not stick. So instead I picked up a cheap gouache kit. I've been meaning to get into gouache for a while since it's thicker and more opaque than watercolors, and I also like the matte finish a little bit more than a glossy acrylic finish. Plus, cleanup is easier. For the longest time, I hated how I drew flowers, but now it's kind of grown on me. See what I did there? Anyway, I'm thinking of doing a video breaking down the steps on how I draw my flowers. If that's something that you think you'd be interested in, let me know in the comments. If there's enough interest, I'll make that video. Here I'm just thickening up some of my lines so that there's a little bit more variation. This is going to help define the different parts so that it doesn't wind up looking so flat or visually overwhelming. It's a trick that a lot of comic book artists use. Then I let the paint dry for several hours before going in and erasing all of the pencil marks. This is just a basic Artist Loft gouache kit from Michaels. I think it's their student grade. I think that's what their Artist Loft label is. I think it's the student grade. I'm also using a really thick brush and just water it first. It's going to give it more of that liquidy splatter effect later. Then I'm going in with my colors, but I'm keeping things pretty diluted for now. It's easier to add color later than it is to take it away if you've made a mistake. I tried to keep a bit of a dry canvas border between the black outline and the wet color, both for artistic effect and because of the black bleeding that I mentioned earlier. Nothing too crazy here, just your standard rainbow order, RGB, it's Roy G. Biv. Yeah, that. When you're using watercolor, you can actually sprinkle the wet paint with salt and it'll create this really cool texture. And I tried that here, but I'm not really sure that it worked out as well with the gouache, and I'm not 100% in love with it. So make that decision for yourself on whether you like this texture or not before trying it. When it's all dry, just brush the salt off. Okay, so now things are about to get really fancy. I flipped the canvas over and I hot glued a bit of yarn underneath the frame of the canvas that is going to help hold the battery pack for the lights. Christmas is a great time to pick up these light kits, or just after when they're all on sale. It's just a small LED light strand that uses a couple of AA batteries. Outside of the holiday season, you can usually find these in the floral or wedding sections at Michael's or Joann's. I hot glued the wires near each of the tiny bulbs one at a time so that I could flip the canvas over and check their placement as I went. I also tried to not directly glue the bulbs themselves. That way, if they get hot, it doesn't cause the glue to melt and it's not a fire hazard, etc., etc. I really like the design that I did here. I am a little bit unhappy that the battery pack has such a prominent shadow, but I think it would have been less of an issue if I had used a deeper canvas. So if you get more of the gallery wrapped ones where it's like an inch deep, that would be better for this application, I think. You could also try a different design, like if you did a landscape that had a bunch of black trees, the battery pack could kind of get tucked up behind the trees and be less noticeable because there wouldn't be this giant square shadow there. But for what I intend to use it for, I'm just going to prop it up in my studio in a corner here and keep the battery pack off to the side for easy access. That way there's not going to be any shadow showing. Well, you made it this far in the video, why not subscribe? And do me a favor and hit that like button and share this video with a friend. And if you try this yourself, don't forget to tag me on Instagram at AidenFox. Happy painting!